Natural market, peace. How you doing? Trying to give some. I know it's early. Trying to give a couple of people a chance to get on here. Trying to get me a little cardio in. On the quest to be the best. Hey, that's what's up. A quest to be the best. Heard that. Hopefully the hopefully the new venture is going well. I don't know if anybody gonna get on here because it's this early, but if not, then we'll chat. Trying to kill two birds with one stone. Said I haven't worked out in ages. I thought about you, how my chart is a locomotive. Yeah, yeah. Locomotive charts often are like they often express somewhat like a locomotive. Get up ahead of steam, get out of my way. Here I come. I was eclipsing some energy yesterday. I got people. I get people where they are. Right on. Yeah. So you already eclipsing some people. Yes. Yeah, it's been a lot of the eclipses is big business or serious business, I should say, coming up on Saturday. You want to go back 19 years and see where you were in life 19 years ago, because this eclipse will be almost at the exact same point it was October 14th, 2004. So, but I wanted to, people can catch this on the replay. Time Wars. I got this book, I want to say almost like a year and a half ago, and never had a chance to pick it up and start reading it. It's his book. It's called Time Wars. This is a must-have. Time Wars by Jeremy Rifkin. He got a lot of books. I discovered he's got a lot of books. But this is the first one of his that I've gotten my hands on. I've mentioned this book before, and I referenced this book in my book, the uh, the Lies Behind the Ties. This book is another must-have book, Medieval Callings. I got this book. Let me say this real quick. I got this book. I used to work for Progressive Insurance. I worked for them for about 8 months, from 2015 to 2016. They, when you start working there, at least it was when I did, they fly you out to Phoenix, Arizona for like 10 days for training. And so they give you this big speech about how some people have gone down there on the training trip and didn't know how to behave and lost their job while they were down there, all this shit. When I got to Phoenix, I'm surrounded by idiots, first of all. Nobody, nobody with no awareness, nobody to talk to about anything beyond bullshit. So we got like three people got to share this rental car. And these idiots, that's a whole nother story. So I say, okay, I'm going out on my own. So I figured out while I was down there, I had to get my locks retwisted. I found this African lady while I was down there, caught me a bus from Scottsdale over into Phoenix, got my locks retwisted, took the bus back to the end of the bus line, and I walked, this ain't no exaggeration, I'm gonna say I walked about 3 miles, and I found me, um, no, that's another night. That night I walked back to the hotel. But another time I left the hotel and walked north. I want to say I was going north. Found me a Goodwill. And in this Goodwill, which is the greatest Goodwill I ever been in my life, I found this book. While I was down there, because they gave us like 500 and something dollars per diem, I blew at least 100 and something dollars of that on books. I don't know how I got that shit back on the plane, but I found they got some amazing bookstores down there in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. So that goes a story that this don't have shit to do with the price of tea in China, but I wanted to tell it anyway. Because to highlight the hunt that I've been on for discovery. I've been hunting for a while now, you know, hunting for light, hunting for uh, whatever, knowledge, secrets. And so back to the subject though, Time Wars. These two books coincide with each other and they take us back. They're social commentary books and they're historical. And what they bring to the forefront is how time is used to control lives. Time. Time. And basically, in a nutshell, you go back far enough in time and you'll find that, well, let me read it. I'm going to read a passage out of here. It says, Medieval craftsmen had been accustomed to a very different temporal rhythm. Generally self employed, they set their own work time. For the most part, they were task oriented and thought nothing of suspending work for several hours during the day to chat with a friend, do chores around the house, or visit the local tavern. Since most trades were seasonal, craftsmen would work for concentrated periods of time, then engage in rest and recreation for long periods. Peasant farmers followed a similar routine. Their rhythm of work and leisure depended on the dictates of the seasons. The new system of factory production required a wholly new temporal orientation. Large numbers of workers had to be organized under one roof. Work tasks were divided into specialized categories requiring greater coordination of activity. Now, what this thing is saying is that something happened at some point where the framework of time got changed. Now, I'm estimating that it occurs somewhere around the 14th century, which would be the 1300s, which is after the signing of the Magna Carta. Now, I haven't dug deep enough into this, but just from the peripheral, it seems that the mechanical clock comes into purview or existence somewhere in the 1300s. Now, before I continue, we got to look at some historical correlations. We know that in Europe in the 1300s, the Moors are still occupying the landmass. Now, we know historically that the Moors have been disconnected from their ethnicity by being called different names, Saracens, Muslims, whatever. But we know that those of us who are astute enough, we know that when we mention Muslim in classical history, we're talking about Moors. Why is that significant? Because you can find record of the first clocks to be associated with Muslims, as in a Muslim invention. I'm going to take scholastic liberty and say this is pointing to Moorish invention. Now, you know, when we were growing up, we all learned about Benjamin Banneker and him being the clocks and this and that. And we learned from teachers like C. Freeman L. that Benjamin Banneker was Benjamin Banneker Bay. But even still, the clock as a mechanism seems to have its origins far earlier, centuries earlier, but it still traces back to Moors. There's also connection with the Benedictine monks of the building of early clocks, or one of the earliest clocks. And these clocks were used to time prayers and duties and when to eat, when to study, when to go to sleep for these so-called monks. It was basically to create an external framework, a structure that would be utilized to maintain their order. Prior, and as we go further back in time, time is not associated with a number, it's associated with a feeling, with an event, with an encounter. For example, if somebody may say, how long does it take to walk up that street and back? In uh, today's language, we say it'll take about 10 minutes. If we peer further back in time, a person may answer that question like this. It takes as long as it takes to salt uh, 4 pieces of cod for you to walk up that. You see what I'm saying? So the judgment of time was not held up against a mechanical object. Time was related back to something else that represented an experience. And if we go further back, you know, it gets closer to archetypes, you know. So something happened either between Moors and Christendom. Something in there where time was mechanized to a degree that we are still suffering from it right now because we are all living as victims to some degree of time because uh, our system of, of Western capitalism, and I'm not saying this to promote communism or whatever, but let's just keep it real. Our system is predicated on time. What do we say? Time is money. So, all for the most part, if you're not filthy rich, your time or the usage of your time always has to be measured up against the backdrop of how much does it cost me financially? Meaning, I would love, I got, I don't know, at least a couple thousand books. I would love to be able to go through them and just explore. I would love to, these magazines I got these old Gnosis magazines. I got these old astrology magazines. I got stuff I want to just sit and observe people, you know, all types of learning opportunities, which is what the word leisure really means. Leis, leisure is to learn. And so, with this mechanistic um, approach to reality that we've been thrust into, if we're completely honest, there's very little room for leisure unless you figure out a way to increase your income to a point where you can buy leisure or time for leisure, or you can decrease your wants and desires to a point where you can reclaim your right to leisure. That's the, but you have to be in a mindset to understand what time is, how time has been manipulated, and the importance of you having time, your own time. Now, It creates it creates quite a challenge. Peace, Milton. It creates quite a challenge because if you're not a trust fund baby and you've been born into this reality, you have to figure out how to manipulate this time frame and best utilize your skills or develop your skills so that you can put yourself in a position to have more control over your time. So you have to play the game initially. We all got to play the game. But the challenge is to play the game always having the end game goal of reclaiming at least a portion of my time, a greater portion of my time, so it can be allocated to leisure. Because leisure time is God time. That's a quote right there. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. Leisure time is God time. That is when you approach the divine. It's in your time of leisure. And so you can see how the school systems are set up. As I outline in my book, the schools are set up, if you look at the architecture of the schools, many of them are designed similarly to the layout of a prison. Got day rooms, you know, they told my daughter when she was at middle school, she got to school late one day and she told me they made her go to the wall. Go to the wall. They even teach the teachers prison terminology. Go to the wall. Just in case, well, not just in case, in anticipation of the fact that they know that a certain population of these students are going to be in prison. They know. So let's go ahead and introduce some of these terms that they're going to soon be acquainted with. Let's go ahead and introduce them now. Go to the wall. Because when we look back in these two books, we see, let me give you another example, how the clock and the bell are actually kissing cousins. The clock and the bell are kissing cousins because the word clock literally, etymologically, comes from the same root as bell. Because you strike a bell for it to have tonation. And what do we say about the clock? When the clock strikes 12, strikes noon, you know? So the clock is an extension of the bell. So read this out of this book, Medieval Callings. This is in reference to bells out in the field. They are called bells by the peasants who live in the field and who are unable to judge the hours except by means of the bells. Okay? This does not mean that city dwellers of the time were already accustomed to mechanical bells. And this is basically referring to like the 13th century, 1200s. This does not mean that city dwellers of the time were already accustomed to mechanical clocks and automatons, but they had had their own bells for at least two generations. Hung at the highest point of a church or a belfry, their tolling punctuated the workday. signal the opening and closing of the gates, ordered curfew, or called the citizenry to council. In short, they gave a rhythm to a secular municipal time. After 1300, bells served only to reinforce clocks. Shalom, shalom, Eric, to reinforce clocks. So we've all been through the conditioning system of the school where we have a bell to let us know class is over, and that bell is running parallel with the clocks on the wall. Okay, so with the bell is reinforcing the clock. Then we have a bell to let us know that we're about to be late. Then we have a bell to let us know that we are late. So, so here's the condition. It starts a long time ago. Going down, it says, thanks to mechanical clocks, the entrepreneur could keep track of hours worked, which his workmen were quick to contest. And clerics and princes saw them as means of disciplining the throng. Listen to that shit. The machine, this is a quote, the machine that so justly divides the 12 hours of the day, teaches observance of justice and the laws, end quote, proclaims an inscription written soon after 1500 over the clock of the Palais de la Cité in Paris. The clock permitted better regulation of the hours for meals, prayer, and leisure. Listen to that. And it enabled the faithful to relive the hours of the Passion more accurately. As a measure for actions and behavior, it was an important part of ratio in the city. Now, this all connects again back to our education system. Again, in my book, The Lies Behind the Ties, I lay out in there how this guy, Joseph Lancaster, comes over from Europe and he introduces this form of school where you could have upwards of 500 students in a room at a time. And he would create these captains, usually older children. And these older children are kind of like, they're going to make sure that the other children, what's up, Dark True? They're going to make sure that the other children are staying in line, following orders. That is the template for what we have now as supervisors. Super means above, visor means to see, overseers. So this system that we're in now has been well thought out, well mapped out, and it is not by happenstance. It connects with our educational system. It connects with religious organizations, and it's a connection with the penal system. I outline that in the book. It's all a form of conditioning. At this time with Lancaster, and you got to think this is early 1800s. All right. At this time, they're looking for solutions for this transition they want to make. And the transition is, just as this book is laying out about entrepreneurs and the craftsmen guilds and all this, people, for the most part, the early part of the U.S. corporation were more entrepreneurial, self-reliant. And that involved goods and services. That involved your education. All of that was self-generated. They come in and create industry. Okay. And as we go back, we see that industry or industrialism does not begin in the 1700s. It begins in the so-called Middle Ages, prior to the invention of the clock. The bell is closely tied to industrialization. The clock magnifies the power and the game plan. It's not the word I want to use. Um, of industrialization. It magnifies that. So by the time we get up to late 1700s, early 1800s over here, this thing is already, the train already left the station. Okay? So what's needed is just continued adjustments to the machine. And the machine, the job of the machine is to inhibit man from, and we're moving into the metaphysics now, to inhibit man from inciting, entreating, elevating, evolving the God within. That's been see, when you read these things about history and sociology and economy, because these people get paid to be so-called specialists, a lot of times they won't connect all the dots. And the dots connect that all this stuff has a metaphysical, occult underpinning to it. Okay? If you want to maintain a prison planet, then you can't ever really educate the inhabitants. You can't ever really allow them to experience joy. You know, when people come to me now, I'm big on simply seeing if people really know what gives them joy. You coming to me asking me, how's my money look in the future? How, if everything is driven by the clock and the elements associated with the clock. We're worried about money. Myself included, I mean, I'm human. Hell, I ain't living up on no damn mountain nowhere. I mean, I gotta think about money. But the obsession comes with the fact that we've been placed on an artificial timeline. Time itself is whooping us. Time itself is whooping us. And it is so I'm asking people, well, what gives you joy? Oh, I don't know. Having money and what? No, what gives you joy? What gives you peace? You know, if you can't answer those questions, you know, then just know that no matter how much money you got, you've been victimized. You've been victimized. Even the people who are who have set up this whole system are victims of a hole that they have inside of them that they can't feel. It's just like Val Kilmer said on what was that movie? Oh shit, Tombstone. He got a big old hole inside of him that he just can't feel. You know, that's what's driving this. If you genetically feel that time is against you, then your fight will be to control time and to control other people's time, because it is a fear that time and nature will overtake you. See, nature was the clock, and the experiences within nature operated as the clock. But when you have something that comes along that is outside of nature, then it naturally sees nature as the enemy. And I must create a machine to control it. And we're living within the system of a chaotic, schizophrenic, psychopathic mind that cannot let things be. Because to let things be is to have peace. You know, I grew up all my life with certain people expressing their disdain and distaste for being around me. And it was so amazing at 46 years old when I don't express a desire to be around them. They're always clamoring to come and be involved in whatever you got going, you know, because it's a sick attraction. That's something feared because if you separate whatever's the first template of God to come down in human form, whatever that is, um, it will be the closest mirror or reflector of nature. So you must, whenever you see it, you see nature. And you must always conquer nature. If nature wants to get too close to you, you chop it all down. But if nature don't want nothing to have nothing to do with you, you got to come and say, "Oh, I want to, I want to live in harmony with nature, and I want." What you're saying, I want to control it, and I create words like sustainability, as if to say I can sustain nature. It's all ultra egotistical, and you see it reflected on nature and on natural people. I know you're picking up what I'm putting down. You know, I live this shit. I don't have to make this up. This is real deal, Jimmy. Some amazing stuff. Continuing at this thing of time and indigenous people, we now can look back and understand why the civil rights movement was so vehemently pushed. Because natural people who were not involved in the machine actually posed a threat. Even if them being cut off and poor and downtrodden, they posed a threat. So the machine had to integrate the natural people into the machine. Now, the people thought they were getting some type of victory, okay? But what was happening was they were being set up for women's liberation, Caucasian women's liberation. And even those people were being set up for GNL rights. You know what that is? GNL rights, GNL community. And those people were being played for the transformers, for their rights. And those people are being played for artificial intelligence. The ultimate time war, last showdown. It's all been scripted And it is very egotistical, right on. Yes. Eric said the void. Yes. Like a bug, like they came, they come. Yes, indeed. You know, and you know, it's an ill game because even in the midst of the discussion of the natural people, we got to go back to my beginning of who invented the clock. Who invented the clock? I have a comic strip that a comic book that goes in to proclaim that how the Catholic Church created modern Islam. I heard that before. And you know, Bobby Hemmett taught us to read those comic books, watch the cartoons, you know, look at the movies. What a what better place to hide the truth? So I bought two of these things, this comic book. So when we go back and look at these clocks, we seem to come down to two groups, Muslims and Catholics or Jesuits. Now here's the question. Are these Muslims that are being referred to the Catholic creation Muslims? Are the Muslims referring to Moors? And which we, like I said earlier, we know that Saracens and Muslims and Mohammedans and Ishmaelites, these different terms were used at times to hide the identity of Moors or any references to Moors. Is this some type of backhand something that was going on? Something to ponder. Something to ponder. You know, because you know it's great when we say we invented this, we invented that, but on the same token, you got to ask yourself, did we invent something that has been working to our demise? And maybe it was not originally created with the intent to be detrimental, but it's hard to imagine that a people that spent 100 years fighting each other, you know, over cold land, who just recently became civilized. It's hard to believe that they invented one of the most mechanically complicated things in our existence, which is a clock, a huge mechanical clock, all these inner working parts. When we're talking about a people who, if you get the book Dirt, who even up till the 18th, 19th century didn't even know how to throw away they feces. But you can go and engineer something as complicated as this clock. Since, and we know they're still discovering Moorish aqueducts and plumbing over in Spain right now to use for irrigation, stuff that was invented over 1,000 years ago. So it makes you wonder if we have been the authors of our own demise. So enough on that. That's something for you scholars to go and dig into your Moorish history. Um, but now, present day, living in this paradigm that we're in, we have to know how to live in both worlds. We have to know how to live in the world of how to be controllers of our own time, meaning we have to become the clock and the bell and fight the urge to rely on something outside of me to be my regulator. This is why I'm biased, of course, but it's hard for me to tell somebody if they come to me, especially for advice or a reading, and they're going on and on about their job and how they feel unfulfilled, but they're concerned about getting the next promotion. It's hard for me to not throw out, well, uh, why aren't you thinking about being your own boss? And it's the fear that's been ingrained in us associated with time and the fact that time we may run out of time. We may not be able to survive unless we coalesce to someone else's image of time. But to even be in a position where you control your time, you got to really be disciplined. You got to really be disciplined. You have to do things that are not cool, not fun, when nobody's around. You know, you got to do things that are not celebrated. You got to do the grunt work. Just like this. I mean, I'm in this garage doing cardio. You know, I could be going harder if I wasn't on here talking, but I'm just saying this is a form of discipline. A form of discipline. You have to create your own confinement so that you don't be subject to somebody else creating a confinement for you. You also have to be aware of time terrorists. Oh yeah, time terrorists. People who go out their way to waste your time. Ain't talking about nothing, ain't trying to do nothing, ain't thinking about nothing, ain't working towards nothing, ain't got no goals, just existing. Or maybe they already straight and their egos just need somebody to, some people need a cheerleader around them, you know. So they're gonna, you know, there's a guy at the gym, I had to run from him in the gym because it's like I don't want to be rude. It's like, man, look, I don't come in here to hear about your life. You understand? He's a time terrorist. I live next to a time terrorist. You know, just want to force themselves on you. You have to keep them at bay. Sometimes you just got to just hurt their feelings. But it's this automatons don't think. They don't think about the implications of wasting somebody's time when we already live in an existence where your time is pressed. So we got these battles we got to go through. We got to battle against ourselves. We got to battle against time terrorists. And all of this just to get us in a position to reclaim a certain portion of our time. And then we have to know what we're going to do with this time now that we have it. So I challenge all of y'all to go. Don't take my word. Go and research the word leisure. See what it traces back to, and then fully assess what it means to have leisure time or to be a gentleman or a lady of leisure. Boy, y'all, I done gone through 50. I'm at 52 minutes. Shit, I was only gonna do 30. I might not have been going that hard, but 50 minutes, I might as well stay on here and make it an hour. Wisdom is knowing the odds of success. I like that. The quick, the quote I made up: business takes a minute, the bullshit takes all day. Already. Wow, I was just thinking about talkers and dumpers. I mind my business. You mind exactly. Exactly. Well, but know this though, Mike Hess, minding your business um, is very threatening to some people. It took me a while to realize that. A lot of people are more bothered by someone minding their business than someone being all in their business. You got to think, we live in a social media world now where I used to trip off of people on Facebook who drop their location on Facebook. So and so is at Red Lobster eating some bullshit seafood. you know, like, yo, you want attention that bad? You want everybody to know, like, I'm not involved in the world. I'm going to involve you in my world when I choose to involve you. Not when I'm out having time with my whomever. That ain't your. I've always been under the thing of moving silence. Like, let everybody all in my shit. Um, but we have been conditioned now that it's like, tell everything. You know, and what people tend to do with me is come and tell me about themselves with an expectation. I'm gonna tell them like, no, no, I buy, I don't sell. I'll buy all the shit you selling, but I'm not selling nothing. In other words, you know, I'm not trying to tell you all about my business. But people really get bothered by that because it makes them feel insecure to be around someone who's secure enough in themselves to not need validation from another bullshit ass human. You know, who cares that your child is a student at such and such element? Who gives a fuck? The only one should care is you. I got so much shit I could brag about my children about. So much shit, you know. But let's just be honest. I'm the one who had the pleasure of creating them babies. Why the fuck should somebody care about my nut? Let's just keep it real. I busted that. I had the pleasure. I got that from my daddy. That's what my daddy said. He said, I ain't had the pleasure of making that child, so shit ain't my problem. That's Henry Robinson, Big Henry, Senior. You know, so I believe in that. Who gives a fuck about your child got straight A's? You know, and I know it sounds harsh, but we got to be honest. We become so needy of other people's validation that it turns us into just worthless nothings that constantly seek somebody to say, you matter. I went off on a tangent on that. But I'm trying to take myself on another 3-minute tangent, but I ain't got to hold y'all on here for me to finish these 3 minutes. I've said all I got. Hey, if you're not yet, go and subscribe to my other channel, 720 Astrology. I'm gonna be putting up hopefully, if I can get it done early enough, put up a video today about the eclipse that's coming up. What the fuck is that? The eclipse that's coming up on Saturday. We got an annular solar eclipse, which is the Ring of Fire. It's going to be coming up on Saturday at 21 degrees of Libra. It's a kind of big thing. So, as I said earlier, go back and think about what was going on 19 years ago in your life to the day, October 14th, 2004. What was going on? What was emerging? Think about that. Because we're at a period where we're initiating a new phase of life right now. Solar eclipse is a new moon eclipse. But I'm going to talk about all that on my other channel, 720 Astrology. Go on over there and subscribe. As always, stay down till you get up. When you get up, stay down. Please, peace.